I can tell you've got big goal energy. Are you ready to turn your wildest dreams into your everyday reality? You are in the right place. Welcome to Big Goal Energy, the podcast that helps you turn your audacious and delusional dreams into your everyday life. We know that you don't settle for the ordinary, that you have dreams which others may deem unrealistic. But here, we help you defy reality and bring those dreams to life. Each episode of Big Goal Energy empowers you with knowledge, inspiration, and mentorship to conquer your most unrealistic goals. From transparent roundtable conversations to short-form episodes, you'll hear the experiences of women who have defied reality, as well as learn practical tips and strategies to fuel your journey. Join us by subscribing to Big Goal Energy, and together we'll turn your audacious dreams into remarkable achievements. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Goal Energy. I'm Bree Seeley here with three of my personal favorite humans. I know all of these women personally. I've hung out with all of them personally. I adore all of them personally. And there's a reason that I asked each of them to be here today, because each of them run really fucking incredible communities, and they are all experts in bringing women together and using community to further their mission and their vision while impacting a fuck ton of humans as they go. So I'm really excited to share each of their stories with you, each of their wisdom with you, and who knows, dive into all sorts of things that we may not even yet know that we're going to talk about. I would love each of you to share what your name is, what your community is, and then why is community important to you? So Dani, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I am Dani Carpio. I run the Healing and CPTSD community, which is a community for complex trauma survivors. Community is important to me because it has helped me understand that I'm not alone. As a CPTSD survivor, it's let me know that there's other people like me out there, and it's really helped me not be so isolated anymore.
Danielle, do you want to go next?
Danielle Melton. I am the founder of both Motherboard and Motherboard Foundation, which our mission with both is to help support the well-being of working mothers. And community is so important for me because I was feeling lonely in motherhood and thought I was just the only one on my journey that felt that she was not doing the best in both worlds. And come to find out, most women are having a hard time with the juggle, and being around others who understand what you're going through is so important. Super excited to be here. Thank you, Bree.
Thank you. Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Desouza. I am the founder of Same Skin, and we're a company that creates immersive experiences for women to help them build generational health and wealth. We are very community focused, with our primary focus being on women of color. And for me, community is important because it's just a place to feel seen and heard. I started it during my grief journey, and I was so isolated like everyone else. And it's just, sometimes I always say, like, misery loves company. And it's just nice to see other people who are in it with you, because I have never felt more seen and heard than when I am with the women at any Same Skin event.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bree Seeley, the entrepreneur coach. I run communities for entrepreneurs and specifically run a lot of group coaching containers. Part of the reason I started doing it was because women have so much to learn from each other. And I think historically, we've been gatekeepers because we've been told that we're competition, and that if I coordinate or collaborate with you, then you're winning and I'm losing. And what I found is that when we all come together and we learn together and we create together and we collaborate together, it's not a win-lose situation, it becomes a win-win situation. I love facilitating groups and communities. Obviously, I love bringing together women because we do have so much to learn from one another. And I think, all of you touched upon this as well. Community is a way for us to all understand that we're not alone. We're all internet entrepreneurs. And while we all have communities, it's still a pretty lonely journey. What have you guys seen in your communities? Like, what have you seen as the power of community? I ran a group it must have been 2016, and it was probably 15 women. They were all in their entrepreneurial journeys, and one of the women decided to sell her house and buy an RV with her husband, and they coordinated around the nation tour for them to just go around. This was pre-COVID, and she ended up planning her itinerary to go visit every single woman that had been in the community with her.
Oh, I love
And
that. That's
it was the coolest thing. So I would get these text messages of selfies of Darcy with all of the other women, all around her community. And then, of course, she came to LA, where those of us that were in LA all got together in person and got to connect in person. But it was so cool because these women never would have met if not for that container.
I feel like I personally didn't know community was so powerful, and I didn't know that it could exist. I actually accidentally started my community. I didn't know I was creating it. I was just creating something that reflected me and what I was experiencing, and I thought I was really alone on it. And then all of a sudden, it just kept growing online, and more people kept commenting and being like, wait, me too. Wait, there's a name for this. Wait, I'm not the only one. And I was like, what is happening here? Is this possible? It really organically turned into this beautiful community that allowed me not to know I wasn't alone. And everybody was sharing with me that they weren't alone either. And it just continued to grow. So I didn't know community was possible for people like me. And it is possible, and it can organically create itself. And now I get to cultivate it and hold that container for everybody else. But if you think that it's not possible out there, it definitely is. And sometimes it'll just surprise you by showing itself to you.
I also think like building community online is much easier than building it in person first. This may sound weird because like community meaning like, you know, you have to kind of connect with someone IRL, but online, like there's less inhibitions to reach out to somebody, or you share something socially and it kind of like gives somebody else that permission. For me, I think with the stuff that I was sharing first, it was so heavy and had like a grief angle to it, but I was getting DMs from women who were sharing their grief with me as a complete stranger, and almost like they were like liberated in that. And I think giving people that permission too, I always say, like, I think it just starts with you, right? Like you have to put yourself out there, however uncomfortable, and then your people will find you. With Same Skin, most of the women around me have some sort of fucked up thing that has happened to them. And I think that makes the best kinds of people. And then they alchemize it, and then they build these like creative businesses or side hustles and things like that. And it's like, oh wow, that has been very fortifying in our group, where we're like, wow, she took like a shitty part of her existence and like created this, and I can too.
I love that. It sounds like we all, like you were saying, Bree, started online, and mine started as a small Instagram page at the height of COVID. So we were all stuck in the house with our kids and needing something. So I think that had a lot to do with how fast we've grown. One of the biggest things with me and, you know, building the community was I really wanted to be very intentional of making it diverse, because a lot of times we are in our own silos when it comes to our same skin color or our same career path. But one thing that we brought everybody together is that we know that being a working mom is difficult. And no matter if you're a CEO of a company or a teacher, it's hard. So bringing all these different people together to share that one thing in common was huge. So within our different, you know, in-person events that we started, like one of the great things is we had this one engineer who was an African-American lady and this one teacher who was Caucasian, and they're like best friends now because they were able to meet. And from that, with that one thing in common, I say that was my biggest takeaway, being able to not only support the mothers within the community, but do my part to create, you know, diversity and change in regards to that. So
one of the things that I hear from you and then see in my experience as well is that each of you have a very clear mission. It's the thing that you talk about all the time. And, you know, I've heard each of you say it. Mine is entrepreneurship sucks when you're doing it alone and you have to have other people around you. How did that process go of like trying to find that? And how has that mission really served to draw more people in as well and or repel people?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, I started this, and a lot of people starting, it sounds like everybody here started their community due to a personal need, something that pulled them personally. And with me, I was executive leadership in the school district and became a parent through foster. I became a parent non-traditionally. It was just hard trying to balance. And I'm like, how in the heck are people doing this? It got so bad that I was so overwhelmed and so burned out that I had to go to urgent care for a doctor's note to say, let me have a break. I felt like I was about to have a mental breakdown. During those 3 days off, I was like, what am I feeling? What is this? I'm trying to name it so I can fix it. And that's when I figured out, oh, it's burnout. And most women who are moms deal with this. So I said, well, is there a solution out there? Google looked everything, and there was nothing that supported mothers with their well-being and burnout. I did find groups for those who are like moms looking to support their kids, or like business women together, but not focusing on like the working mom juggle. So that's kind of how I created, because there wasn't anything out there that I could find. And again, I was looking for something for me. And then from that, it just kind of grew bigger, seeing like, oh, this is a bigger thing, bigger than just me. Most women need this. And I wanted to create it in that way.
I think finding like a hole in the market for me, I couldn't share anything that wasn't an achievement. But then in my grief, I had all these things that were non achievements that were holding me together. And I realized that as women and women of color, you're not allowed to share things that aren't achievements for the most part or celebrate them. And I was like, where are the spaces where we can kind of just come and like exist as who we are, not what we do, and not having our worth tied to all of that stuff? And leaning into that story helped draw a lot more personal stories from fellow entrepreneurs. And I will say, finding a co-entrepreneur who matches your energy and the level you're at is really hard. And it's a lot of trial and error. I met Bree I was listening to a podcast, Bree was a guest, and I was like, oh, let me reach out to her because she was talking about spirituality and these other things that most mainstream people weren't talking about back then. When people are speaking, you have to lean into their story and see if you can relate to that. And I mean, you will burn some bridges along the way as we're all learning, you know.
Well, but I think, as I mentioned too, and I know Dani will have something to say about this as well, that mantra needs to turn people off. It needs to repel the people that are not a part of our community, because our communities are not for every person. We have to have that super strong mission because we want the people who hear it to be like, ew, who would ever need that? Like, bye.
Yep.
Thanks so much. See you later.
Absolutely. To go off of that, Brie, for our community, it's a place where you're not alone, right? And you deserve to be seen, heard, and understood in your pain. So many of us deal with trauma and pain, and we live in a society that is so focused on positivity and the accomplishments and the happiness and all the good vibes only. But that's not realistic, and that's not being a human, and that's not what life is actually about. Within our community, because we focus so much on looking at the ugly things, looking at the pain, allowing you to show up as you are in all the emotions, that makes people really uncomfortable when you are showing up authentically. And I think across the board, I mean, just speaking to you guys in this short time that we're all being authentic to who we are and trying to collect people like that. That will directly repel people immediately who can't look at their own stuff and take accountability for who they are. Block and restrict can be your best friend in these instances because they will come and attack. It's part of the process when you're doing something online, but I say just move them out. Like, I'm just like, clear them out of the way. More people will come that are supposed to see you, because unfortunately, social media and being in the public online is open to all the people who aren't niche for all of us.
Piggybacking on what you're saying, Dani, vulnerability is so important. As leaders of our communities, we are setting that tone and that stage of what we want the vibe to be. I've been in certain things that they say, oh, it's this, but when you get there, it's like, oh, it's not really that. Oh, we're not really letting our hair down. We say that. This is not that space. It sounds like all of us have that ability and opportunity to say, this is truly who we are. This is truly the vibe in the community we're trying to build. And we want you to show up as your authentic self because we are showing up that way as well.
I'm curious. I've been in all 4 of our communities, and I know that all of us cultivate a space where people can do that. There's a lot of communities out there, like you said, Danielle, say they're authentic, but then you get in there and you're like, oh, I can't actually show up in my totality. How do each of you work to infuse that authenticity without just saying like, oh, we're authentic? Because anyone can say they're authentic, but we actually have authentic communities. I mean, my women cry on my calls all the time because we're going that deep and we're uncovering things and we're talking about stuff that matters. How do you either model that or hold space for that or open up for that so that people can show up in their totalities knowing they're not going to be judged?
For me, it's active listening. I always let people tell me I lead, and I kind of lean into my story a little, so that gives them the permission to go there. Once somebody can feel safe with you like that, that's a whole new level. I also try to make our events aesthetically pleasing because that's like my DNA. But I really am very intentional about curating a room for energy. I'm not going to have any random people in there. And in the beginning, I wanted this virality. And sometimes I'm thinking about this, like in the shower, I'm like, what would I do if a reel went viral? I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Then I'd have to follow that up. It would devastate me. And so smaller, more curated rooms that are filled with intention and purpose, and also creating that blueprint of this is how it's going to go. And then leading a community through that. That's really how I want to curate rooms, because I have been in rooms where it's just like selfies. I mean, we've all been there, but immediately no. Like, I have vowed to never be that person.
For someone who didn't know they were starting a community and within like a month there was 10,000 followers and within a year there's 100, it just keeps growing and continues to grow. And it's beautiful and I love it. However, the bigger and bigger you get, the more and more you have people that aren't your ideal community members. You have people that are just following you to follow you. I lose about 5,000 followers a week and I'm totally okay with that because it's like, please move out of the way. When people are coming into the space that are not the ideal community member and provide value and add to the community, it can disrupt everything. You have one person that's in a comment section that is going at it in a negative way. You're putting all the rest of the people that you are trying to protect and cultivate for at risk. At the end of the day, you don't know what they're going to say and you don't know what people's triggers are. And it's really, really, really difficult the bigger and bigger you get to cultivate that beautiful little wonderful space that has everybody that's just loving it and wonderful with it. And it's not fun because, as you know, we're all talking about being authentic, you kind of have to be the first persons out there being authentic to lead and show everybody else. You are the main target for attack and you are the main person that gets the DMs and the comments and the emails and the nastiness that comes with it. And somebody like me, I generally find one bad comment or one attack and it will really beat me up, even though I have hundreds of other beautiful, beautiful messages. The more and more it happens, the more and more you get tougher skin with it and determine that it's not about the one person, it's about the hundreds of other people that you're helping. There's always going to be someone that has something negative to say. And the more and more you're creating for yourself and for your community, the more and more other people aren't going to like it because they don't have that. And they couldn't even imagine what that's like. And they will throw that negative energy. So it really does fall back on the energy aspect that Michelle was talking about and making sure the people that are in the space are adding to it and not draining it out.
Just hearing you say that, and I thank you for talking about that because I want to add a little piece to it. When we're thinking about followers doesn't always equal community. And like you're saying, within the followers, we might have a core of people that's like, let's build together, let's do this together. And that's not just be here just to be here. I love that you're mentioning that. And then another thing, when I started Motherboard, I was in the background. I was very nervous of being the face because I didn't want it to be a Danielle show. I literally had to go to counseling about this because I felt so weird about like, hey, you guys, event, goodbye. And to now be like, okay, it's important because our stories, our why behind it is what is creating the community. So leaning into that is important. And I'm all in now, but it was difficult in the beginning. And the others out there may be having that same issue too. Like, I want to build this, but I don't know about me building it or my face. Your story, your why is very important. And that's what's going to build it.
Danielle, I just want to reiterate, when I started my community, I was anonymous. I just put my face on the community a little over a year ago because it was scary. It grew really fast. I'm talking about really personal situations and social media is scary. I just want to reiterate, you're not the only one. The first 3 years of my community was completely anonymous. And some community members had a really hard time with that. They wanted to know who I was. And other community members were like, we don't want you to show our face. Everybody wants something different, but what I found when I finally, after 3 years, and again, I had to do a lot of work as well to get the courage to come out there and be like, hey guys, this is me back here. It's so scary and that's okay. Having the fear is okay. However, putting my face on the community changed everything because it gave people something to connect with, a real human being, a real story, a real person. And that's just game changer. But you're not alone in that because I was like right there with you. So I just want to make sure you knew that like it's valid. It's scary.
Yes.
I feel like you and I had some conversations about that too, Dani. I feel like I was pushing you to get your face out there, which is funny because now Dani's been trying to convince me to do a faceless Big Goal Energy Instagram, which I have.
Ooh.
The podcast is going up there as well, but she was like, you can grow it. If you're faceless, you can put stuff up there. It's a balance.
How long have you all had your communities? I would love to know that. And then from day one to now, what have you learned from your community building?
Mine started in 2020 as one Instagram post that I had to get approved by a few friends via email. I was like, I think I'm going to do this. So give or take 4 years, I will say that I've learned that in-person stuff is much more valuable. Consistency is really, really key. Like I can just drop something and then like disappear and then come right back in 3 months and be like, hey guys, it's me again and we're going to do this. People have to build that trust with you over time and it takes a really long time. I've also learned that anything I'm comparing myself myself to on the internet is someone's 10th year or their 15th year of doing something. I, in year 1 or 2, was comparing myself to that. I'm learning to check myself on that now. I'm also very mindful of being a consumer over a creator. Because I think if we're all business women trying to build these communities, we can't be consumers nonstop of this stuff. Because then it's diluting, at least for me, it dilutes my process and it makes me a little less original when if I'm just going to like show up without the trends, without things that are viral right now, it's more timeless for me. That is my big takeaway where I'm like, I just want to show up more as who I am in my friend group or my inner circle online too. Because that to me, like I can look at it a year from now and be like, oh yeah, that was me.
I mean, authenticity right there. Absolutely. It's funny because I think we all started ours basically in 2020 because I also started mine in 2020, which is just funny here that we all are 4 years later. I learned a lot about myself. I doubted myself a lot more before I started it and didn't think that I could have a voice and didn't think that it mattered or anyone wanted to hear it. And the community has just shown up so much for me that I've become more confident. I've trusted my voice, and me trusting my voice and knowing that I'm allowed to have one, it makes it so that I know every single person in my community also deserves to have their voice. The healing and growth that I've learned through the community to know that it's not just me, other people are dealing with it, hearing other people's stories has been so healing and growing for me that I feel like I don't even deserve it half the days because it's such a beautiful gift to run such a beautiful space that can support people. That is the main thing that I've learned from it, but also how much connection is needed. We are not meant to do life alone. We are not meant to do motherhood alone. We are not meant to do entrepreneurship alone. We are not meant to do healing alone. We're not supposed to do that alone. And we are so designed to stay alone in it that it really just opened my eyes to how important it is to be with other people and to have connection in our lives. It changes everything.
I love that. And just kind of like piggybacking on that, again, I started community because I needed something. It was a need that I was trying to fill. And then finding out that it stopped being about me and more about everyone else. I was like, okay, I can't stop now. I have all these people who need me, who need this. So it became bigger than me. And one of the things that was helpful is listening to the community. We have evolved from literally an Instagram page to networking events. Then we had chapters across America. And now we are a fully virtual platform. Like, it's been crazy, but it's because I was listening to the community, even though, again, I started for me, but I'm like, what do you all want? What are you all needing? And then tweaked and moved things so that I'm able to still support them. Evolving and moving forward with the community in mind, because I've also seen people create things and do things for them. And it's like, what do they want though? You're going left and they're all like, hey, we want to go right. Being a community leader is really important to definitely listen to what the community needs. It's going to take things better, take things farther that way.
One of my biggest learnings, and I'll echo something Michelle said, is that consistency piece. One of the things I've discovered is it can be a little difficult to balance. I have a lot on my plate right now, and sometimes it's a little hard to for a community. And I started launching group programs back in 2015, but I launched my first true community. I just got a notification that it was 8 years ago that I launched my first Facebook group. I would pour so much into a launch and then I would have to completely tap out for 90 days because I hadn't yet figured out how to fill myself up enough, sustain that moving forward. And I would always see some sort of launch, whether it was a book launch or an event launch or something like that as the end point. And I had to really shift my perspective around that being a new beginning. Yes, the launch might be over, but it's a new beginning into whatever's after that. That's been something I've struggled with. And I try not to shame myself for it. I feel like that contributed to a lot of the highs and the lows in my entrepreneurial journey is because I'll pour everything into something and then have nothing left for 90 days and no one hears from me. And then I got to ramp it back up again. Michelle's laughing because I know she's experienced this too. That's one of the things where if I could go back and do it again, I would learn how to temper that a little bit more. It is a little nice nowadays. You can pre-schedule shit. So if you know that you have a week coming up where maybe your period's starting or you're going on vacation or something's happening that you can't fully show up, there's systems and strategies that you can put in place to support the momentum to keep moving that doesn't require you and your energy and your time.
Yeah. That's so important because at the end of the day, you can't serve your community if you have an empty cup. I know all of us deal with that, right? We all struggle with that because we all want to serve our community. We want to give them everything because we know they deserve it. One thing I would say within that as well is being authentic with the community. There are days that I can't show up and I'm like, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I know I said I was going to get this up today and I just can't today. And the amount of support that I get from them where they're like, we would rather you tell us and be real with us. And that goes so much further because it gives them permission to do the same. In those moments that we aren't planning ahead and life takes a turn for us, I would say encourage everyone to be real with them because it allows them to also be like, oh, we can take a day for us too.
Another thing with that, thinking about being authentic in things and including your community, there's a lot of times your community members want to be part of what you're doing. We had one person, she was like, I really enjoy decorating. I kind of want to do a decorating business. Can I practice on y'all? I'm like, yes, please do. She wanted to practice and get photos and get things ready. So when she was ready to launch her own business in regards to that, she had that ability. It was just really cool with that in mind. And then also other people want to take charge and be helpful as well. Keeping in mind, like leveraging your community, because a lot of times when people have a little bit more ownership of things, they take it more serious and then they'll invite more people. It's like, I am part of this, I do this, we have this huge community that we want to invite you to. Community members want to be a part. How can we create this feeling of like, this is my community as well?
I like that part. I'm going to use it. I like that ownership part.
Mm-hmm.
I know enough about your community, Michelle, too, to know that your women would step the fuck up and be like, yeah, I'll host an event. Like,
I struggle with asking for help. I feel like a lot of us do. I'm learning to get better, but I think the part where it's having them take over a little part of an event is a genius idea because, I think everybody needs a space to shine and not everybody can start at step 6. So giving them that little push, that's genius.
I call them my community board members. I do it quarterly, but I used to do monthly networking events, and we used to have up to 50 people. And I have a community board, so it'd be 5 women, and their goal and job was to let their people know in their community to come. So they get like a little VIP this and that. That was the way we marketed to get it full, and it was so genius. They get in for free, they get recognized, and a little cheat code that works for me. And
pardon this quick interruption. One of the biggest challenges ambitious entrepreneurs face is closing the gap between where they are and their big, big goal. I've created a resource for you that will help you navigate the journey more easily. Defy Reality, the female entrepreneur's guide to achieving her audaciously ambitious goals, will guide you through a process to 110% claim the inevitability of your big delusional goal, banish your doubts, and identify the exact steps you need to take to defy reality. Visit breeseely.com/free to get immediate access to this tool that will help you stop wasting your time so you can start defying reality. And now, back to your episode.
What does everybody do to fill up their own cup? We serve these communities, but what do you guys do to take care of yourself?
This year, after I hosted Cycle Breakers in March, I decided to do monthly events because I couldn't do the subscription-based stuff. It was just not sustainable for me. And so it's like, okay, what I'm going to do is have a monthly play date for women, and I'm going to test whatever it is that we're going to do. So if we're going to do a ceramics class, I, Michelle, am personally going to take the ceramics class by myself or with a friend. So that's how I've been trying to fill my cup, where it's a little fun for me. And then I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And it's also a business experience. I try to focus on doing something that is very grounding for me at least once a week. I am not great at it. I lead these experiences where women can come together and support their hustle and heal because I need it the most. So I'm trying to be very mindful of that and do either one type of energy healing session or yoga or get a massage or sit in the sauna. Sitting in the sauna and crying is hands down my favorite thing to do. So I try to schedule one of those at least once a week. I just have to be better about being accountable.
I love that.
What do you guys do?
I'll be honest quick. It's funny because I love curating groups for other people and I struggle a lot to join groups. I think part of it is one of the stories that I've carried through my entire life. I was an only child for the first 10 years of my life. I would much rather prefer to be at home with a book than hanging out. I always hated group projects because I was always the most ambitious person and I would just always do all of it. I'm like, I don't fucking need other people. I can just do it myself. I will not lie, I have a hard time joining things because I have this core story that I'm different and that people don't get me. So I don't join things as much as I probably could. There have started to be community sound baths in Tulsa that I have been trying to go to. I feel like I do a lot better one-on-one with people than in communities. I form the best fucking communities. I bring together really amazing people, but I struggle a lot with joining communities.
I agree-ish to that. As a woman of color, Michelle kind of knows, as we mentioned, I always have to feel like I have to prove myself in groups, and it's exhausting. Even my daughter, she goes to a private school, and they're always like, what do you do? What does your husband do? And I'm like, oh, okay, let me explain. It's a lot. So just me being a Black woman anyway is already a journey. But then if I'm in these certain groups, saying like I belong here and showing that I belong here is another level of that. All transparency is just exhausting. But some of the communities I'm already in is more so like I'm part of Jack and Jill, which is a community for African American children. So my daughter is around other children for my daughter. And then I'm part of like Fam Tech or Parent Tech, which is like a family technology company and parent technology company. So I'm surrounded by other people who are building with family and parents in mind, that kind of community in that regard. But I don't have any like CEO or founder communities I'm part of, really. I mean, that would be cool to kind of build our cups for like community builders. That would be great.
Maybe one of us should create that.
Like,
Bree?
Bree, that's right up your alley.
I'll add it to the list. What about you, Dani? You're very intentional about filling your cup and making sure that you're taken care of.
Every day I have to fill my cup. Every day I'm doing tapping, qigong, breath work. I have a whole routine that without doubt has to be done before I can function and interact with people. Otherwise, I'm not there and I am just not serving anybody, not even myself, and it's very uncomfortable. So I just get a little routine, and some days it's longer, some days it's only 20 minutes, but it's non-negotiable for me. And if I go a day without even doing 20 minutes of it, I feel it next day and it's not good. So I know that that's something that I need, and I'm proud of myself for developing that habit and making sure that I follow through with it, because sometimes it's not about an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours of these big things. Sometimes it's just a couple minutes a day of doing something just for yourself, even if it's just locking yourself in your car so nobody can talk to you. I really enjoy my me time, and that's the only way I can serve others.
I'm the same way. I have to start my morning off right. It's only 15 minutes because I'm a mom. Like, just gotta have my own self for 15 minutes. So I just do a little bit of breath work. I write down what I'm grateful for, usually listen to a little bit of a podcast or a book or something like that. And then I feel like I'm charged and ready for the day. I just do small bits, like you're saying, like start it off right, sprinkle things in. I don't really do a lot of things. I'm kind of boring. Going out to lunch and dinner with people at 9 p.m. is something that I don't do often.
Danielle and I went out for dinner with our partners on Friday night, and the dinner reservation was for 9 p.m. And it was so funny that Jordan and Quentin both were like, yep, their check engine lights, both of them hit right around the same time. It's time to go home. They're done.
We tried, though. We really tried.
It was fun. It was still fun. There was a great band. It was at the Summit Club, which is where the conference is going to be this year. We had a really nice night. But yeah, same, where even a lot of my friendships this year have shifted because I'm like, my capacity has just lowered with the things that I'm building and what I'm doing. Even my personal community has shifted because I'm like, I don't have this huge reservoir for super intense, intimate friendships and connections right now in a way that I have in the past. And it sucks. I don't want that to be my reality. But at the same time, there are some other things that have taken priority in my life. Starting a nonprofit was not on my list, and launching a women's conference was not really in the plans, and, much less my business and getting revenue and clients so that I can sustain myself. And that can just be a lot. I do feel like our communities are so helpful in holding that space. What do you guys feel like your lives and businesses would be like if you didn't have your community?
I don't honestly.
Straight up depressed. Because I still work
Yeah.
a job, and if I only did the corporate job, I would just be depressed in my own personal life. Building Same Skin has expanded my life experience so much that I show up better as a partner, a daughter, a sister. It really pours into my own personal life, and I would just have so much built up resentment and frustration because I wouldn't have anywhere for this energy to go, and I'd just be holding on to it. I would most definitely just be miserable and depressed. I used to be a very angry person before I started Same Skin. We're like, oh, you're so calm. And so I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm doing something that fills my cup.
My whole livelihood is around me building community and like shifting and failing forward to where I am now. So I don't know. I'll probably still be in the academic department, working in executive leadership there and teaching at the university level, but still burned out.
I don't even want to think about where I would be, honestly, because I can't imagine my life without the community. If I didn't know that there was other people like me, I would be still stuck in a lot of pain and trauma thinking that it was my fault. The community really saved my life in so many ways that on a personal level, on a business level, I mean, I don't want to think about what I would be like without it because it wouldn't be a pretty picture for sure.
For anyone that's thinking about building a community, what would your life be like in 4 years if you didn't take this step today? If you're thinking about it, give yourself permission and do it. See what can come out of it because you simply don't know. Any last thoughts before we wrap up the episode?
To go off of what you were just saying, I would also say that even if there are communities similar to what you're trying to build, there's enough space for all of our communities. So many people need community out there that like there's enough to go around. Everybody needs community. So even if it is something that's similar, you might be doing it differently and other people might need that. So still going after it regardless.
I also think to reach out to these similar communities. I have so many women in my community who run parallel communities and we're all doing the same thing, but we're serving different audiences. But they come to my events, I go to theirs. Reach out to them. You'll be surprised how many people are just willing to share or help more often than not.
Yes. And then just another piece to it is not every feeling should be a community. Sometimes it just needs to be a feeling. So I just want you all to know that as well. 2 pieces to that. So say like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm going through this, I'm going to create a community. It may not be something that needs to be created, or it may not be the time to create. You also got to keep that in mind. This may be a great idea, but maybe a little bit later. Maybe right now is not the time, later on, because there'll be more people who may be experiencing or may be able to see what you're building and feel that it's time to join that. So don't be discouraged on things if it's not growing as fast and things like that. Sometimes things take time. Again, we are community builders of pandemic time, so we had everybody's attention during that time, okay? It may grow slower, and slow is okay. So just know that. Keep that in mind.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you, Dani Carpio from Healing and CPTSD, Danielle Melton from Motherboard, and Michelle Desouza from Same Skin. Please feel free to go connect with them. Thank you all for joining me on today's episode. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to the Big Goal Energy podcast. We have a lot more conversations like this coming your way. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Big Goal Energy. We trust that it fueled your ambition and made you feel seen. We are a community of ambitious female entrepreneurs like you. Come join us in the Big Goal Energy community by visiting breesealy.com/community. In the meantime, send your questions for us to cover in the episodes to info@breesealy.com. Together, we'll turn your audacious dreams into remarkable achievements. Cheers to defying reality. See you on the next episode.